Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Soul Land 2 Peerless Tangmen based on novel. So let's start. Wang Chua was furious. Who needs your mercy? She squatted down, before shooting upwards like a golden arrow. Her sixth soul ring shone, as she shot up, and unleashed her sixth soul skill, Golden Dragon's Bloodlust. She decided to pit her sixth soul skill against Wang Donger's sixth soul skill. Wang Chua was like a goddess of war right now. She had natural instincts for fighting. When she realized that something was different about Wang Donger, she quickly increased her fighting strength to its maximum. A furious-looking golden dragon coiled around her body as it appeared. It slowly rose up along the golden dragon spear's shaft. Its instantaneous explosive power seemed to tear the entire sky apart. Wang Donger was glowing brightly with dazzling light when she stopped in mid-air. Following this, the light scattered, and countless, small radiant butterfly goddesses suddenly dispersed, before suddenly beginning to engulf Wang Chua. Butterfly Goddess Dance. This was indeed Wang Donger's Butterfly Goddess Dance. A sonorous dragon roar reverberated, and Wang Chua's fifth soul ring instantly lit up. Wang Donger had used her strongest skill immediately. Even though Wang Chua didn't know her intention, she was still determined to pit her strongest skills against Wang Donger. The combination of her Golden Dragon's Bloodlust and Golden Dragon's Roar was the strongest pairing of soul skills she could form. The coiling Golden Dragon instantly grew larger, and started to cover Wang Chua's body entirely. Its eyes were completely red now, marking a sign of bloodlust. The entire icy peak was illuminated by the light coming off its body. The countless radiant butterfly goddesses were like dazzling, bluish gold clouds that bore down on Wang Chua, whereas the coiling golden dragon charged towards them as if it was searching for light. When both parties came into contact with each other, Wang Chua's dragon stopped, and the countless radiant butterfly goddesses gently adhered to it. They didn't clash forcefully with the dragon, but rather landed on it gradually. This was using softness to conquer strength. Wang Donger was clearly aware that she would lose to Wang Chua in a direct confrontation, even with the chaotic splitting wind hammer technique of her clear sky hammer. Wang Chua would never let her have the opportunity to unleash her chaotic splitting wind hammer technique at its full strength. That was why there was only one way she could beat Wang Chua, using her softness to conquer Wang Chua's strength. Only her butterfly goddess dance was capable of suppressing Wang Chua. The golden dragon instantly turned bluish gold as it was engulfed by the radiant butterfly goddesses. A huge bluish gold projection also surfaced in the sky at the same moment. The golden dragon started to contort tremendously as it tried to break out of the trap set by the radiant butterfly goddesses. However, Wang Chua's explosive strength and dominant aura were continuously weakened as she tried to escape. Against Yang Feng, Wang Donger had unleashed 7 consecutive explosions using her butterfly goddess dance. Even with Yang Feng's evil soul master abilities, he'd still needed to use his martial soul true body to break free. However, even then he'd still been hurt. Wang Donger's butterfly goddess dance was only possible because she could metamorphosize her abilities. She was no less gifted than Huo Yuhao. After all, she also had twin martial souls. At this point, Wang Chua finally experienced how strong Wang Donger was. Boom! The first explosion rang out, and a huge radiant butterfly goddess projection suddenly appeared, causing the coiling golden dragon to turn even more bluish gold. Boom, boom, boom. Another 3 explosions sounded. The golden dragon started to twist and contort tremendously. The radiant butterfly goddesses surrounding it had also turned into bluish gold patterns on Wang Chua's body. Boom, boom, the 5th and 6th explosions rang out, the terrifying explosions causing the golden dragon's aura to weaken significantly. However, the sky suddenly turned silent at this moment. The bluish gold butterfly projection that appeared after the 6th explosion reverberated seemed to materialize in the air. Following this, a golden dragon projection appeared beneath it, and started to rapidly knock its way into Wang Chua's body. The piercing golden lights seemed to create another small sun in the sky. Afterwards, an unprecedentedly domineering aura instantly erupted. The bluish gold light faded away, and the dragon finally managed to break free from its restraints, escaping the encirclement before the last explosion occurred. Wang Donger's figure surfaced in the air, formed from a combination of countless streaks of bluish gold light. Right now, she seemed very pale, and her left arm sagged beside her body. However, her 5th soul ring also lit up, and she turned a transparent gold. This was her fifth soul skill, Goddess of Light's possession. In the next moment, the golden dragon that had risen up clashed with Wang Dong's radiant butterfly goddess once again. Although they were both golden, they both had different styles and auras. The golden light from their bodies weaved in the air as they clashed. Wang Dong's radiant butterfly goddess and Wang Qiu's coiling golden dragon both disappeared. Only two ravishing figures descended from the sky and gradually landed on the icy peak. Both Wang Dong and Wang Qiu seemed a little pale. However, their gazes were equally sharp. Although they'd only clashed for a short period of time, they'd already given their all. Their long, powder blue hair fluttered in the air, and they were both very persistent and focused. Their resolve caused the icy peak to be filled with a somber air. As they were landing, they were also recharging themselves. Their next clash was bound to be just as spectacular as before. It might even decide who the victor of this fight was. However, the sky lit up at this point. It was as if the sun had graced the icy peak with its presence. The bright golden light quickly attracted their attention. They lifted their head to look into the sky. What they saw left them both astonished and anxious. Amidst the golden lights, a figure was quickly charging towards another figure. However, the former figure was flung backwards every time he tried to attack. Blood continuously flowed from his body. However, he still crawled up in persistence and charged towards the illusory figure. Yuhao. It's him. Both of them spoke at almost the same time. Their strong fighting intent dissolved at this moment. The bluish gold lights behind Wang Dong started to ignite again. She couldn't be bothered to recover her powers anymore. The wings of her goddess of light quickly opened. As she fluttered them with force, she propelled herself towards the figure in the air that kept on being beaten down. Wang Qiu couldn't fly, but this didn't affect her movement. She sank down, before suddenly springing up like a cannon shell. The strength of her golden dragon propelled her body upward towards the other's figure, at an even faster speed than Wang Dong. However, an indescribably terrifying force suddenly descended from the sky when they reached a certain altitude, causing them to be forced back down to the icy peak. No! Wang Dong cried out in sorrow when she saw Huo Yuhao flung back yet again. As Wang Qiu's character was different than hers, her reaction was also different. She didn't cry out, but rather gritted her teeth. She disregarded everything and sprang up into the air again. However, they were too weak compared to the force that had descended from the sky. All of their efforts were simply wasted. A bluish gold figure slowly walked towards Huo Yuhao, and a shining trident appeared in his hand. No! This time, Wang Qiu finally shouted along with Wang Dong. They both had a desperate look in their eyes. At this point, the light projection paused, and the indifferent voice from earlier sounded yet again. No conclusion will be reached from this duel between the two of you. Since that's the case, we'll use another method. Huo Yuhao is on the brink of death right now. However, he'll survive so long as one of you is willing to sacrifice your life for his. However, you must remember that he might end up with the other person if he survives and you die. This means that you might grant your love rival her wish if you sacrifice your life to save him. The two of you will have 3 seconds to decide. 3. Isn't this a little cruel to them? Wasn't his test sufficient? A dull voice asked. If it was just to be my son-in-law. However, my personal expectations of him aren't nearly that simple. Moreover, there's also a prerequisite to becoming said son-in-law. Have you forgotten? A soothing voice replied. It's not easy becoming your son-in-law. Why do I feel like you were trying to exact revenge earlier? Are all fathers like that when they see their daughters fall for someone else? You must be having fun with the fight, right? The soothing voice coughed, before saying, Don't malign me. I'm very impartial. Without a storm, how can there be a rainbow? I'd already decided this when I let Xiao Qi descend on this world. In the future, if he can't let Xiao Qi, I'll consider that nothing happened at all, then. You're too vicious. How could it be easy to be my son-in-law? HMPH. She's my favorite. Aren't you going a little overboard on your daughter as well? Without a storm, there's no rainbow. Without setbacks, one won't learn how to treasure things. All right. You win. Without a storm, there's no rainbow. Shut up before I complain to your wife. Oh yeah, does the boss know that you're doing this to his descendant? I forgot to tell him. Deliberately. Huo Yuhao struggled to crawl up from the ground. He didn't know how many times he'd been beaten to the ground at this point. He'd been battered as soon as he'd begun, and gone through the entire process death, and coming back several times at this point. He'd slowly gotten used to this feeling, and had pestered his opponent longer and longer. Throughout this process, he'd practically felt every type of pain one could imagine. He could even clearly remember the specific pain tied to a specific bone when it was crushed. This inhumane torture that he was suffering was akin to a form of baptism. However, this baptism seemed to make him stronger. Every time he experienced pain and gritted his teeth before charging towards his terrifying opponent, he felt that his mental resilience had become ever so slightly stronger. It wasn't a good feeling, but Huo Yuhao could clearly sense his improvement. The reason that he was able to last longer and longer against his opponent wasn't because his abilities had risen to a level where he could rival his opponent. Rather, it was because his opponent's abilities seemed to become weaker as time passed. Naturally, this enabled him to last longer. The longer he lasted, the greater the beatings he suffered. As time passed, he even felt that it would be better to be killed in one hit. At least the pain would only last an instant. That, and he'd only have to suffer the pain of death, rather than suffering the inhumane torture that he was currently being subjected to. Slowly, he was beginning to collapse, and became extremely weak and confused. The only thought left was that he knew he had to charge towards his opponent with all his strength. He had to attack, fight, and go all out. After some time, he was on the verge of collapse. He fainted, but his opponent didn't kill him this time. In this strange place, injuries healed at a miraculous speed. Huo Yuhao was able to clearly feel his crushed bones reassembled, his broken passageways reconnected, and his blood begin to circulate through his body once again. He'd already slowly gotten used to the terrifying pain the longer he fought. It's so comfortable to just lie down. Why hasn't he killed me yet? When he finally crawled up from the ground once again, everything around him was empty, replaced by an omnipresent golden light. The bluish-gold figure had disappeared. Did I pass, or not? Huo Yuhao was in a daze as he wondered this. Going through that unforgettable experience should be enough for me to pass, right? If he had to go through it again, he might really lose his mind. However, was the abuse that he'd gone through really all the test was about? It didn't feel like things would be so simple. At this point, his surroundings turned into a light fog that rose from the ground. The fog then started to form layers, before distorting. Huo Yuhao focused his gaze. At this point, he'd already fully recovered. Although he didn't know if there would be any more tests for him, or if everything had ended, he felt extremely confident. Not only did he not possess any fear, he was instead eager. The brutal torture that he'd experienced hadn't been for nothing. His abilities and mental resilience had both improved significantly. A light flashed, turning the ground into a huge hexagonal projection. Countless esoteric symbols flit about and transformed within it. Everything here was unrestrained, unlike before. Huo Yuhao sensed that his soul power was still circulating properly, and that his spiritual power was no longer suppressed. The only depressing thing was that his lower limbs had been frozen once again. The earlier neutralization of the origin energy of ultimate ice had lost its effect. Furthermore, he couldn't connect with his ring in order to unleash his human-shaped soul tool to carry his body. As a result, he could only sit on the ground, using his arms to steady himself. At this point, two beams of golden light shone vertically not far in front of him. Two figures slowly became clear and appeared in front of him. These two figures were supporting each other. Their entire bodies were stained with blood as they appeared. If not for the fact that Huo Yuhao was familiar with them, he wouldn't have recognized them. Dai Huobin, Zhu Lu. Huo Yuhao exclaimed in shock. Dai Huobin also saw him. He lifted his head and struggled to nod. After Huo Yuhao had helped his father the previous time, he was no longer hostile towards him. However, there was a sorrowful look in his eyes at this moment. Dai Huobin was heavily wounded. It was as if he'd just climbed out of a dye vat. His entire body was stained with blood. However, he still remained standing, and was supporting Zhu Lu in his arms. Zhu Lu's body was convulsing, and she groaned from time to time. Huo Yuhao could immediately tell that something was wrong with her using his spirit eyes. When he focused on Zhu Lu's body, he was extremely shocked to find out what was happening to her. Zhu Lu was in a tragic state. Her entire right arm had been bent out of shape. As for her face, it was only possible to see half of it, as it was covered in blood and wounds. Only half of her nose and one ear remained. The remaining side of her face was extremely pale. Dai Huobin, Zhu, what's going on? Huo Yuhao couldn't help but ask. It was very difficult for him to move right now, thus he could only sit where he was and question the two of them. Dai Huobin struggled to speak. She's been poisoned. To save her. Huo Yuhao understood what was going on. As he looked at the wounds all over Dai Huobin's body, he suddenly felt that his hatred towards him had slightly diminished. No. I can't forget my hatred towards him. He was the one who hurt Mom, who caused her to. However, why didn't Mom let me take revenge, and instead tell me that it was destiny? Huo Yuhao felt slightly tormented, and shut his eyes. To Dai Huobin, he had a commiserating expression on his face. Dai Huobin helped Zhu to the ground as he sat down next her. He lowered his head and let her lie on his thighs. Right now, he didn't appear nearly as fierce as before. There was only a gentle look in his eyes as he examined Zhu's injuries. Tears also started to stream down uncontrollably from his eyes. Lulu, don't worry. When I decided to chop off your arm, I'd already decided that I'd love you and wed you as my wife no matter what became of you. You'll always be the most beautiful in my eyes. I'll kill whoever calls you ugly. I'll take care of you well. Even if I die, I'll make sure you don't come to any harm. Dai Huobin was sobbing. Tears fell from his eyes with every word he said. All the promises in the world couldn't compare to a real-life experience. As he braved life and death with Zhu, he'd only managed to pass his sincerity adventure round after a few close brushes with death. He finally understood his own heart, and what the most important thing to him was. At this point, another two beams of golden light shone. Huo Yuhao quickly turned his attention to these two beams of light. While he was in low spirits, because of Dai Huobin and Zhu's condition, he knew that, with the appearance of these two beams of light, it signified that Dai Huobin and Zhu had successfully passed their rounds. This meant that they should be able to leave this place alive. What about the rest of them? The remaining few people were all closely connected to him. They were either his good friends or his seniors. Most importantly, there was also his lover. The two beams of golden light that had just appeared became clear. This time, the two people who'd appeared were in a completely different state than tragicness that had befallen Dai Huobin and Zhu. They were still close together, but they were embracing each other. Shu Sanxia seemed very delighted, and was in high spirits. The ravishing Jiang Nannan was leaning against him in his arms with a blush on her face. She hugged one of his arms and wore a satisfied smile. Although there were tear stains next to her eyes, the two of them exuded a blissful aura. Third senior, fourth senior, are the two of you fine? Huo Yuhao hurriedly asked. I'm great. I'm feeling extremely great. Ha 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 ha. Shu Sanxia looked at Huo Yuhao and immediately broke out in delighted laughter. However, he soon saw both Dai Huobin and Zhu and furrowed his brow. He shot an inquiring look at Huo Yuhao afterwards. Huo Yuhao pursed his lip and said, "They are critically hurt." Zhu. Shu Sanxia could see everything for himself even though he didn't finish his words. He was extremely shocked by the condition Zhu was in. No matter what, they were still from the same academy. He didn't gloat over their misfortune, and quickly went over to the both of them before squatting down. He slowly released his gentle Xuanwu soul power. Behind him, the projection of a turtle snake appeared. It was no longer flawed, and didn't need to be activated with force. It was a pure Xuanwu. The gentle power of water quickly cleansed Dai Huobin and Zhu's wounds. Not only did it remove the bloodstains, but it also cleaned up their wounds. Although Shu Sanxia didn't know how to perform any medical treatment, the pure water element from his Xuanwu martial soul was very beneficial towards healing their wounds. At the very least, it would be able to remove the remaining poison in their bodies. Dai Huobin lifted his head, his eyes filled with gratitude as he nodded towards Shu Sanxia. Shu Sanxia sighed and said, "If we can leave this place alive, we can return to the academy and find someone to treat her. There's a healing and auxiliary type teacher, who's a titled Doluor in the inner courtyard. Perhaps she can help heal her." Okay. Dai Huobin seemed to be slightly disinterested, choosing only to hug Zhu tighter. Another beam of golden light shone. This time, there was only one beam. Eldest senior sister. When they saw Zhong Lishuan, Huo Yuhao, Shu Sanxia, and Jiang Nannan couldn't help but call out to her. Another person had returned, which proved that another person had passed their test. It was a good thing to them. Zhong Lishuan smiled and nodded at them. After that, she also saw Dai Huobin and Zhulu and immediately rushed over. However, she didn't know how to treat them and could only comfort them. Huo Yuhao watched from the side and was stunned to realize that Zhong Lishuan seemed to have become different. In the past, she rarely smiled. However, she now seemed to be casually grinning. Even though she'd furrowed her brow after seeing Zhulu's critical injuries, the resentment that was normally there was gone. She seemed more approachable, and her eyes were brighter too. She was different. It seems like everyone has experienced different things in their sincerity adventure test. It's also the same with third and fourth seniors. However, what exactly happened to these two? Dorma, when will you return? Chioa isn't here yet either. How's she doing? At this point, another two beams of golden light shone. Huo Yuhao was eager as he turned his attention in that direction. Two people fell from the sky screaming and crashed to the ground. The two of them were hugging one another. However, they rolled on the ground after crashing and seemed very disheveled. Huo Yuhao was disappointed. These two weren't the ones he was waiting for. They were Ning Qian and Wu Feng. Ning Qian and Wu Feng were panting heavily and took some time to catch their breath. When they saw everyone looking at them, they started to cheer at the same time. We're alive. We aren't dead. As they cheered, they hugged each other tightly. They seemed to be delighted to be alive. 8 out of the earlier 13 had returned. What about the remaining 5? Just as Huo Yuhao was thinking that, another 3 beams of golden light shone down simultaneously. The first person to appear was Bei Bei, who seemed to be in a daze. He seemed to be trying to recall something. Huo Yuhao was stunned to see that Bei Bei was looking at him with a doubtful look in his eyes. The unfamiliar feeling in his eyes made it seem like he didn't know him. The other two who appeared with Bei Bei weren't Wang Donga and Wang Chioa. They were He Kaitu and Xiao Xiao. They also looked very weird. Xiao Xiao was sitting on He Kaitu's right shoulder, swinging her legs. She was smiling sweetly and hugging He Kaitu's neck with her left hand. He Kaitu was also grinning ear to ear. They are all back and they are all fine. What about Donga and Chioa? Huo Yuhao clenched his fists tightly. He was finally becoming a little anxious. Why aren't Donga and Chioa back? What has happened to them? No, they are fine. They won't meet with any problems. They are both so outstanding. No matter what situation they encounter, they should be able to deal with it. Huo Yuhao was becoming more and more nervous. The more he cared, the less able he was to keep calm. A projection suddenly lit up, but no one returned. Instead, a strange light screen was presented in front of everyone. The light screen turned from ethereal to clear. Everyone saw an icy mountain peak in front of them. Donga, Chioa. Huo Yuhao immediately noticed Wang Donga and Wang Chioa, who were both seated on this ice peak. Apart from the unconscious Zhulu, the rest were also drawn to this light screen. Bei Bei was also jolted out from his dazed state right now. He quickly hurried to Huo Yuhao's side. He clapped Yuhao's shoulder as he squatted down. Little Junior, don't worry. They'll be fine. Huo Yuhao didn't open his mouth. While he was a resilient person, how could he remain calm when Wang Donga was about to get into trouble? The more he cared, the more vexed he was. A voice came from the light screen. When Huo Yuhao heard that voice and realized that only one of them could survive, he clenched his fists. If Bei Bei wasn't tightly holding onto his shoulder, he would have charged forward without any hesitation. Calm down, Yuhao. You must calm down and watch what happens. There must be a reason why we are being shown this. Huo Yuhao took in a deep breath. He knew that Bei Bei was right. At such a time, being impulsive wasn't going to solve any problem. Wang Donga and Wang Chioa's voices were both audible. Everyone wore a weird look on their faces when they heard their conversation. Although many of them knew that things were ambiguous between Wang Chioa and Huo Yuhao, they hadn't expected her feelings for Huo Yuhao to be so intense. Even Wang Donga seemed to approve of her love towards Huo Yuhao. In the light projection, their conversation. Love is selfish and possessive. He died for you in his past life. The life that he has now was given to him by the yearning heartbroken grass that I plucked. He should belong to me. I love him. I really love him. Chioa, thank you. Thank you for letting Yuhao survive. If not for you, he would have died for me. I can sense your love for him, it's very sincere. However, I have the same passion and love for him. You are right, or rather this yin-yang love querying valley is right. Of the two of us, only one can be together with him. No matter who wins or loses, I believe that we'll still treat him and love him well. Chiyoa, I only have one request. If you win, and if you can, please transform into me to continue loving him. I don't want him to mourn my death. Can you do so? My transformation is final. I can only do it once. Moreover, you are you, and I am me. You are Wang Donga, and I am Wang Chiyoa. I want him to love me. Then, if I die, don't tell him how I died. Just tell him that I went missing. In this way, he'll at least still find some repose in his heart. In the future days, you must love him and slowly transfer his love for me to you. What are you saying all this for? Are you trying to make my determination waver? Dream on. Everyone was stunned after hearing their conversation. Wang Chiyoa's looks were based on Wang Donga. Who is she, then? What final transformation? She can turn into a human. Even Elder Xian can't detect her transformation. What exactly is this? Huo Yuhao noticed something different from the rest. When he heard Wang Donga said, I only have one request. If you win, and if you can, please transform into me to continue loving him. I don't want him to mourn my death. Can you do so? His eyes immediately turned red. Donga, he shouted loudly. However, he couldn't influence what was going on in the projection. Bloody light scattered as Wang Chiyoa's spear stabbed into Wang Donga's arm. However, Wang Donga remained as calm as ever. Huo Yuhao shut his eyes in torment. He couldn't make himself watch their fight. Wang Donga was his lover. However, what about Wang Chiyoa? Wang Chiyoa said that she was the one who gave Huo Yuhao his current life. If not for her, he would have died in the icefire yin-yang well. Was he supposed to hate Wang Chiyoa for hurting Wang Donga? He couldn't possibly do so. Right now, he only felt that he was the one in the wrong. He didn't manage his relationships with Wang Donga and Wang Chiyoa well, which led to this current tragedy. What do I do? What do I do? I can't bear for either of them to be hurt. Tremendous booms sounded, and Huo Yuhao's fingernails had already pierced into his palm. Right now, he was feeling very conflicted and helpless. Yuhao, look. Huo Yuhao opened his eyes as Bei Bei shook him tremendously. He was stunned to find out that he had appeared in the projection. He had appeared in another projection above the ice peak. The bluish-gold figure that he had fought earlier also appeared. Wasn't this the moment when he charged at that figure for the last time? Where are Chiyoa and Donga? They've stopped fighting, and they were suppressed by some kind of force. They must be very anxious because of me. In that light projection, the bluish-gold figure was walking step by step towards him. There was a bright golden trident in his hand too. No. Wang Chiyoa and Wang Donga shouted at the same time. They both had a desperate look in their eyes. At this point, the projection paused, and the indifferent voice from earlier sounded once again. There's no conclusion from this duel between the two of you. Since this is the case, we'll use another method. Huo Yuhao is on the brink of death right now. He'll survive as long as one of you is willing to sacrifice your life for his. However, you must remember that he might end up with the other person if he survives and you die. This means that you might grant your love rival her wish if you sacrifice your life to save him. The two of you only have 3 seconds to decide. 3. Huo Yuhao couldn't help but shout in fury when he watched until here. Scoundrel! You can't do this. You can't do this. I'll die, let me die instead. He struggled to break free from Bei Bei's grasp and crawled towards the projection in front of him. It was also at this point that it suddenly dissipated, turning into spots of light. A thick beam of light descended from the sky and landed not far away from him. Huo Yuhao opened his eyes wide to see who was in it. He saw 2 figures in it. Yes, there were 2 figures. However, they weren't standing side by side. One person was carrying the other person. Wang Chiyoa was the one standing. Wang Donga was peacefully lying in her arms. Huo Yuhao was stunned. At this moment, he had already focused his gaze. He opened his eyes wide, and couldn't believe the scene in front of him. Following this, he struggled to use his hands to support his body and crawl towards Wang Chiyoa with all his strength. Donga, Donga, Donga. How are you? Donga. This video will end here.